You hear that? No. Not the birds chirping, not the bees buzzing around. Ah, I know why you can't hear it. It's a silent killer. Cardiovascular diseases is a silent killer that's affecting the black and brown community at an alarming rate. You probably knew that already, but maybe what you don't know is that it's coming straight for our children, especially our homeschool kids. So today I wanted to share just 5 things. There could be more, but 5 things that I think are critically important that we start today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but today. We start teaching our kids 5 very important things to know about cardiovascular health immediately. Why do I say immediately? I just read a stat. Over the last few years, 95% of black and brown kids have increased in type 2 diabetes. Let me say it again for the people in the back. There's an increase of 95% for black and brown kids for type 2 diabetes within the last few years. And it's coming straight for our homeschool kids. Why is it coming for our homeschool kids? You think about when COVID happened, right? The world froze. Everybody was at home, myself included, right? A lot of us parents, and at the time I had my oldest son actually in a public school before we transitioned over to doing homeschool full time. He was then forced to take classes at home, like many of your children, right? If they were in the public school system or if they were doing homeschooling, they were forced to now stay at home and do work. Well, that was okay. After a while, we got a hang of that, right? A lot of us became teachers and all of that type of stuff. But the one thing that kind of crept in is eating habits. And the kid can sit there on the computer and be there for 5-6 hours, have their breakfast, have their snack, have their lunch, right? Probably have a late lunch, and no movement, no activity. Everything is in front of the screen, right? Parents, we felt the same way. A lot of us were right in front of the screen as well, snacking and doing all this type of stuff. Gyms were closed, right? So you couldn't get that activity in. But one thing that crept in during that season, I don't think a lot of folks are talking about, is this whole cardiovascular disease piece that we're seeing in our children, our black and brown children. And so if you're a homeschool parent like myself, again, there's 5 things that I would encourage you to start teaching your child immediately after this channel. The first thing, cardiovascular diseases are asymptomatic. What does that mean, Mike? And how do you know that? Let me start with the latter first. All right. I know that because I spent some years working at one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and I was selling cardiovascular medication. So at that time that I was working there, we were trained and developed on all the different things related to cardiovascular health. So I became astute in studying cardiovascular health. And the number one thing that I learned is it's asymptomatic. Well, what does that mean? That means you don't feel sick at all when your arteries are clogging or when things are happening to your cardiovascular system until it's too late. If you're like me, my grandfather had diabetes. My grandmother had diabetes. Diabetes oftentimes runs in our communities, in our families. It's hereditary a lot of times. But again, you don't feel sick. So because you don't feel sick, you think everything is fine and well, all while your arteries are starting to clog. And when your arteries clog, what happens? There's no blood, there's no nutrition, there's no fluids going through your heart or getting to your heart or getting to your brain. Hence, you have a stroke or possibly, God forbid, a heart attack. Kids don't understand this. A lot of our younger kids are running around doing their thing and not really feeling any type of symptom until it's too late. So I encourage you, understand what asymptomatic means when it comes to cardiovascular health and start teaching that to your child. I'll tell you, everything that I'm going to cover right now, we covered at grassroots. At grassroots middle, we have kids between the ages of 8 and 14 years old. I explained this whole concept around cardiovascular health. We had a mannequin come in that showed muscles and bone tissues and all of that type of stuff. The kids loved it, absolutely loved it. And at that time, I talked to them about vital organs. I talked to them about cardiovascular. I talked to them about the difference between veins and arteries and things like that, and what happens when your arteries get clogged. So these are things that I've already instilled in our children, our scholars I call them, at Grassroots Middle, that I would strongly encourage you to talk to your homeschool child about today. Asymptomatic, understanding that you don't feel any type of thing happening until it's too late when it comes to cardiovascular health. The second thing, water. Drink water, right? You've heard that, right? But the thing that most kids don't understand is 70 to 80% of your body is made up of water. So what does that mean? If your body is made up mostly of a substance, you have to make sure that you're filling it back up with the thing that it needs most, which is water, right? And so one thing that I encourage my scholars at Grassroots is, and I learned this, back in the day when I was somewhat of an athlete, my football coach used to always talk about, whenever you drink one glass of pop, I'm from the Midwest, we call it pop, or soda, depending on where you are. If you drink one glass of that, make sure you're drinking 2 glasses of water to follow. Studies tell us that we should be having about 8 glasses of water each day. But for a child, if you can do that, that's the home run. That's the gold standard. But if you can't do that, at least give me, every time you drink a glass of juice or pop or soda or whatever you have, make sure you're drinking at least 2 glasses of water behind it. Why? 70 to 80% of your body is made up of water. So when you sweat, you see it coming out, right? So you want to be making sure you're filling yourself up with that. That's number 2. Number 3, sugar. Sugar is not your friend, right? Under certain circumstances, but oftentimes, I just want to hit you where it matters most. Sugar is not your friend. And a lot of kids don't quite understand that just yet. It's a reason why the taste of what you're eating is enjoyable, is almost addictive in somewhat. Sugar's addictive, right? So we need to be educating our homeschoolers about, hey, how much sugar content is in the things that you're eating or drinking. When I was a child, I didn't understand. No one taught me all of this stuff. I didn't understand that pop and juice and those types of things had sugar. Bro, but I didn't quite understand that it had those types of things. And then when you look at packaging, when it says no sugar added, we'll talk about this in subsequent points. But if you look at the nutritional label, it says no additional sugar, but it has sugar content in it. These are the things, again, that our kids aren't quite understanding just yet. And if they don't understand it at a young age, when they get older, what's going to happen? We're all creatures of habit. It becomes a habit. It becomes a behavior, right? 30, 40, 50 years old. And it's hard to stop eating sugar at that point, as opposed to when you're younger, right? One of the principles we have in our household is balance. Everything is balance. I learned from Denzel Washington, too much water will drown you, right? So with the water content, you want to drink water, but you don't want to do too much of anything, right? And so when it comes to sugar, you got to make sure that you're balancing things out. So if you have a piece of sugar, I'm not here to knock, sugar, in terms of you can't have candy, all that kind of stuff. Enjoy life, enjoy the taste of life. Do that, but making sure that you have balance within it. It's not your friend, but it needs to be in balance if you do incorporate that into your diet. Okay. Number 4, I just talked a little bit about it, nutritional labels. How much time are we spending teaching our children about nutritional labels when we go to the grocery store? It's a reason why all of the healthy food, or nutritional food, I'll say, is around the store or the grocery store, with the fresh water coming down, right? With refrigeration happening. And it's a reason why in the middle of the grocery store, it's all the processed stuff. It's all the stuff that can sit on that shelf for multiple weeks at a time without spoiling and all that kind of stuff, so that we as consumers go buy it. Are we talking to our kids? Are we educating our children on the importance of nutritional labels? We did a whole thing on this in Grassroots, and I shout out to one of the families at Grassroots. They had already embedded this into their son. They have 3 sons. One of their sons in particular was like a freaking genius when it came to nutritional labels. He actually helped me teach the class, and we brought in their favorite items And we did a whole thing on just turn it around. Let's look at the back of it. Let's read the ingredients. What are the ingredients? What happens if you can't pronounce an ingredient? What's the importance of serving sizes versus the whole box or the whole bag, right? So make sure that we're spending that time with our children when it comes to reading nutritional labels. I was brought up by my Aunt Lisa. Hey, Auntie Lisa, if you're watching this, your health is your wealth. As a child, I was taught that your health is your wealth, and it didn't mean as much when I was a child. But now that I'm a grown man with a loving family, loving wife, and two sons, 11 and 7, that means so much more to me right now. If we don't have our health, there is nothing else that we can do. So why not start planting that seed in our children today, especially our homeschool kids? And I say especially with our homeschool kids because oftentimes they're in the house. They're doing schoolwork all day in some type of space, right? Grassroots, we're outside. But if you're doing it at home, you're mostly indoors or you're traveling around or doing those types of things. So make sure that your kids are learning the importance of nutritional labels. The last thing, number 5, risk factors. What are risk factors? Risk factors are all the contributing factors. We talked about this earlier. Everybody has arteries in their body. Well, the more risk factors you have, it clogs up around that artery and it gets to the point where it gets too filled that nothing can get through. Those are called risk factors. Lack of activity is a risk factor, right? Hereditary. Your mother has diabetes. Your grandmother had diabetes. Your father has high blood pressure, right? Dyslipidemia, like all of that kind of stuff. That's a risk factor, right? Water intake. You're dehydrated. You don't have enough water flowing through your body, right? These are considered risk factors, right? So these are the things, again, as a child, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And as parents, it's our responsibility to make sure that we're giving this free game, right? It's our responsibility to do that, to share that within our children and then within our communities so that, again, these alarming stats that are running rampant within our community, they're lessened. They're lessened, right? We don't need our children to be impacted by something like this. They need to be out in nature, running around, enjoying themselves, living their best life, living their full, authentic selves. And I promise you, the sooner that you teach them about these 5 important cardiovascular factors, I'll say, the better they'll be. All right. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Please like this or share this if it's impactful to anybody, if it's been impactful to you. We'll love to hear from you from the comments. Give me topics that you want to hear me talk more about. I got a whole agenda and litany of different things that I'm going to be coming to you guys with weekly. But if there's any particular topic that you want to see me talk more about, definitely drop it in the comments box, okay? Thank you for your time. Hopefully you're enjoying your channel. Hopefully you found value within this that you can share within your homes and within your community. Salute.